Preparing.
Check, 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 check. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Check. Can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, type a one in the room. If you guys can hear me, type a one in the room. Oh man. Oh man. Where we at? Loud and clear, huh? I see you, Minister Inky. Shout out to you, my brother. Shout out to you. Every now and again, as a teacher, you may be forced to deal with issues and personalities and people in the community who, because of the level of intelligence that they may have garnered, the level up, that they begin to see themselves as greater than what they may actually be. And then who cares, right? Who cares how a person sees themselves? That's not my business. I hope a person sees themselves in a positive light. That's not my issue. My issue is with people who, with little or no time in learning a particular subject matter, assume the level of authority in that subject matter, right? And because they garnered a couple of following, which is relatively small, but a following nonetheless, they begin to arrogate to themselves that they can spin and change the narrative, right? They can reinvent the wheel, as it were. And then that's when people like me are forced to come out. The teacher's teacher. I'm not just a teacher. I am a teacher's teacher. So at times, the teacher's teacher got to come out and even correct some of the teachers who out here misleading with their teachings. You guys seen part one, right, where I addressed a brother. I tried my best to hold my gloves because, as you guys noted, in the video, I continued to say, and I said several times, that the love I have for this person, which is based on our meeting that we had once, which may be my issue. Maybe at times I'm a little too receiving of others. Maybe at times when people or persons introduce themselves as a particular thing, I accept it. If a guy tells me that he's a teacher, I accept it until he proves otherwise. If a guy tells me that he is a rabbi, while in my mind I might be thinking, who ordained you as a rabbi? In words, I still will be moved to say, okay, Mr. Rabbi, and I will accept you as such until either your actions or your teachings prove otherwise, where we may need to reassess that title and begin to ask basic questions. A rabbi is someone who went through an ordination, the laying of the hands, which we call in biblical Hebrew samika. Where did you receive your rabbinic ordination, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah? Where did you receive your rabbinic ordination, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah? You see, the first time that I addressed this issue, I addressed it from a place of love and brotherhood, right? Yeah, but you beat him up a little bit more, Ray. Yeah, I know, because I'm the big brother. And sometimes as a big brother, You might have to put hands on your little brother because you don't want them going off course, misrepresenting what the parents instilled in the home. So as a big brother, every now and again, you got to tighten up your little brother. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to deal with the topic and I won't call his name. But guess what? I'm going to make you famous today because that's apparently what you want. I'm going to make you famous today because that's apparently what you want. There's an old proverb that says, be careful what you ask for. Because the person you're asking of it from just may give it to you. Family, thumb up the video and share it live because I promise you, not only will this be an epic live in terms of demonstration, in terms of cinematic behavior, but it will also be a very and deeply informative and educational lecture. I don't get a lot of moments to call teachers out because for the most part, I be trying to mind my business out here because people say I'm the neighborhood bully. But every now and again, somebody might force me out of my element where I'm forced to address them openly. And let me begin here. Because people have an issue doesn't mean that we should discard everything we believe about them. Just because you are in a beef, let's say, a discourse that went the wrong way with someone that you expressed love and admiration for in times past, doesn't automatically mean that that person becomes a loser in the community and a loser in your eyes. So here is what I want to make absolutely clear. When it comes to Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, who is the person I will be addressing today, and I will be adding that to the video title when we're done, I still believe that in his heart of hearts, and I could be wrong because I only met him once, but I still believe in his heart of hearts that he's actually a good brother. I have to say that. And while he may not say that about me, that's okay, because being genuine and showing genuine love is not about whether or not that's reciprocated by the person you're showing it to. If you genuinely form some kind of respect, admiration, or even love for someone, just because you go left doesn't mean that you spin the narrative and that person becomes a demon. So I'm not going to say that about the brother. But what I will say that is he's having a very weak moment right now. He's having a very weak moment. He may be feeling that his contribution is not as viable as his other counterparts in the Hebrew community. Which is why in recent posts made on his social media platforms, he has made several references to the Israelite community on a whole and has distanced himself from said community. Because apparently he believes that he is above this community. And apparently he believes that we are not who we say we are. Even though many of us, myself included, have many more years of work. And when I call myself a Moreh, it's not because I said so. When I call myself a chief or even a leader, it's not because I said so. If I call myself or allow myself to be introduced by any title out here, it's because the elders have given me such a title out here. And Unlike our brother who calls himself Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, I have receipts of elders, distinguished elders, giving me the title that I hold. But don't take my word for it. Exhibit A. Hold on. Don't take my word for it. Exhibit A, because one of the problems that you guys have heard me say time and time again is that in the Israelite community, there's no real protocol. In the Israelite community, there's no real checks and balance. In the Israelite community, any Indian can stumble upon the plantation and make themselves a chief leader or even a rabbi, God forbid, without ever having verified that publicly before the people, so that we can see that there is a lineage to the title that you have. There's a lineage behind the title that you respond to, so that we can know that someone somewhere who has lineage gave and conferred upon you the authority to announce yourself in any said title that you acknowledge or address yourself as. So-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, who ordained you as a rabbi? More importantly, are there any witnesses? The Torah says 2 witnesses establish a matter. I don't think I'm asking anything that's too hard, but I could show you witnesses for all of the titles that I hold in the community. I can show you elders who are calling me Moreh, teacher and leader. I can show you elders who graduated me and called me a chief, a title that I worked for over 20 years in the Israelite community. Hard work, real work, field work, street work, congregation work. But hold on. I don't want to look like I'm stalling. Let's go to Exhibit A real quick. Because the last time I checked, if you are who you claim you are, if you are who you claim to be, then the people want to know, can we see it? The people want to know who made you that, who conferred you that, because self-appointed titles is not the way of the Torah. Self-appointed leaders is not the way of the Israelite culture as vetted in the scriptures of the Torah. But hold on. I'm going to take you to an old congregation in Brooklyn, New York. It's called Shema Israel. Shout out to Chief Prince Sapor Ben Zevaloon, also known as Nasi Gadol, who has been in the Israelite community since the 1960s and was the second person I called and came to know as teacher. Shout out to his son, Prince Nat Ben Zevaloon, who was his oldest son, who was given the honor by the father to honor me with the title of Chief Moreh, leader and teacher in the Israelite community. Now watch this.
Learn to the best of your ability. Study, man. There are certain people that are nice. Like, I know certain brothers, man, that is nice. Like, when I talk about language and stuff like that, my go-to guy for linguistics when it comes to historical things is Avdiel.
Is Avdiel. In case y'all don't know who Avdiel is, if you ever bought any of my books, you know my name is Avdiel Ben Levi. And he said, when it comes to the language, mind you, the brother that you're listening to is not like me. I came into the Israelite community in the year 1994. The elder that you're listening to, his name is Nasi Nathaniel, and he was born in this way of life in the year 1976. And I want you to listen clearly to what he says about what my community acknowledges about my expertise in the language. I want you to hear this clearly. Let me play it again.
Learn to the best of your ability. Study, man. There are certain people that are nice. Like, I know certain brothers, man, that is nice. Like, when I talk about language and stuff like that, my go-to guy for linguistics when it comes to historical things is Abdiel. He's a teacher. Mad skills. He nice with it. You understand what I'm saying? But that don't make me less of somebody to say, you know what, in this particular area, he's the man. You know? If I was talking about another...
What did he say? What did he say? In this particular area, Avdiel Ben Levi, also known as Zion Lex, he's the what?
Abdiel. He's a teacher. Mad skills. He nice with it. You understand what I'm saying? But that don't make me less of somebody to say, you know what, in this particular area, he's the man. You know? If I was talking about another specific area, I might say, that's the man. Or that's the sister. But you know, it gives credit to you as an individual when you are able to big up your own people. Woo! You understand what I'm saying? That speaks volume to all of us. Yeah. Build what you got instead of trying to tear it down, man.
You know what he said? It's a great honor as brothers among brothers to be intellectually and spiritually secure enough to give people their flowers when they could smell them. To speak of a person on the level that they occupy in the rawest truth, to be able to say about my brother, while I could do this and while I could do that, and while I know this, when it comes to this brother is the man. When it comes to this, there's nobody quite like this brother. That's okay. It don't belittle you as a man. But evidently, not every man feels that way. There are a lot of men out here that are really not men, because men are always secure in their manhood, whether they have the expertise another man holds or not. At the end of the day, I am a man. Let me show y'all something real quick. I'm gonna take you through lineage. That was just Prince Nathaniel talking about me as a leader in terms of the language, right, in our community. I'm well respected when it comes to the language. Now I want you guys to see that that same community promoted me as a leader, which in Hebrew is called a chief, and as a teacher. But don't take my words for it. I got more receipts. Don't take my words for it. I actually have more receipts. And here we go. And just waiting for the internet to catch up so I could press play. on this video. Come on, internet, with your lazy self. Catch up so I could press play on this video. All right, here's what we're going to do. There we go. There we go. Okay, I see what I did. There we go. All right. You guys should be able to see my screen now. And let me blow it up. Let me blow it up. And before I even press play, let me explain what's occurring here right now. Before I even press play, let me explain what's occurring here right now. Zion is bragging right now. Zion is, he's showing off right now. Of course, if you're a novice, if you're an imbecile, that's probably what you're thinking. But if you understand how the Israelite community and culture and tradition works, you don't just get to call yourself something. There's no such thing as a self-appointed teacher. No such thing. There are people who are self-appointed teachers that are pretty good teachers, but you're not going to really be regarded in the community as a teacher because you have no lineage behind you. The Torah said that there was Levites who were known to be Levites, but because they searched the records and they could not find their records to say that they were from the priestly clan, the Torah says that they were not fit because there was no witness to back who they said they are. And that's mentioned twice in the scriptures, two separate occasions where the priests, who are the teachers of the law, could not officiate in that office without the witness behind that office. So I ask you, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, once more, who ordained you as a rabbi? We'd like to meet that person. But I could show you who gave me the right to call myself a Moreh. Unlike a lot of people operating in the Israelite community, it's not the people on Facebook that said Zion Lex is a Moreh. It's not the people on Instagram or even YouTube that said Zion Lex has got to be a Moreh. Look how he sounds. No, it's the elders who came before me that gave me that title, and the elders who came before them that gave them their titles, and the elders who came before them that gave them their titles. In case you haven't figured out what we're talking about, lineage and protocol. Here we go.
Right or wrong, moving forward, I want to call out a teacher who was given the title of chief man. Not only because of it's about deed, it's about action. Sitting and talking with my father, the chief prince, he's at a point right now where men have to show themselves approved. You got to have a project. You got to be about something. Because according to the chief prince, he's not making no more chief men. That's right. He's not making.
Sorry. Sorry. What Prince Nat just said, and I'm going to play it back a couple of moments ago. He said Chief Prince, who was his father, will no longer be making Chief Prince, not for a while at least. Because obviously you got people who even come through the channels the right way and still don't move in the right way. So imagine who people who are self-taught with no lineage, of course you're going to see them saying and doing things that are totally unorthodox. Having said that, let me let Prince Nathaniel continue.
Something. Because according to Chief Prince, he's not making no more chief men. That's right. He's not making no more chief men. You got to do something to show yourself approved. That's how you make an organization top heavy.
And by the way, when you heard Prince Nat say the Chief Prince, that's the elder seated to the left of him, his left, which on the screen would be your right. The elder with the black turban and the white streak going through it. That's Elder Chief Prince Sapor, the leader of Shema Israel, who comes from Hashaba Israel, who comes from Benai Zakin, the sons of the ancient, whose teacher Nasi Yaakov came out of, talk to me, the commandment keepers, Rabbi Matthews, 1918. We talking about lineage. Lineage. Don't tell me I'm self-appointed. Because unlike y'all on Facebook and YouTube, even naming yourself, some of these people even, their Facebook name is Moray. And no Moray made them a Moray. And I'm a Moray. And I don't even call myself as a Moray on Facebook. You just see Zion Lex. My title in the Israelite community is a leader, a chief man. I also don't announce myself as that. How many videos y'all see me write on there, Chief Avdiel Ben Levi? I'm not hung up on titles. What I'm hung up on is operating under that title. That's what I got a hard on for. Pause. That's what I'm about. I'd rather live the title, which is why, without people even knowing that I was conferred that authority by elders in my community, they already assume that I am a chief, a leader. They already assume that I am a teacher because I move in that capacity in the community for many, many years now. Almost 30 years to be exact. 2 years short of 30 years. And the elders before me that gave me that distinguishment, Elder Chief Principal Ben Zevulun, 50 years in the Israelite community. He ain't 50 years old. Listen to me. 50 years in the Israelite community. You gotta be kidding me. Let me let my brother continue going, and then I'm going to address Rabbi Akwetey Amaah's video that he did yesterday. But I had to warm up the platform for y'all first. I needed to say this in a way that y'all could really understand what I'm saying.
You have to be about a business. That's what it is, man. That's what ratifies men as leadership quality. Be able to do something, You get out there, you shake up, you make something, you bring something to the table. This is what officers do. You know, and it was with great joy that I could call Chief Outline because it's bringing something to the table.
And as you heard him say, it's with great joy that I can call Chief Avdiel, Chief Avdiel, because he lives in that office. You know how you know somebody is who they say they are? Because you see it in their works. You know how you know who somebody is? You know how you know who somebody is what they say they are? because the proof is in their works. It took me 23 years before I wrote my very first book. Some of you in my Hebrew classes, you know, I have this conversation with you guys often. You know, humility. How I often meet people who tell me they're Israelites, and 2 or 3 years in the community, they got 5 books in. You all know you were just introduced to Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, the so-called rabbi. Because until we see who ordained you, that's your title, the so-called rabbi. Having said that, he just popped on the Israelite scene, and those of you who follow me know I'm speaking the absolute truths, in literally 2 to 3 years. Prior to that, nobody knew of him in the Israelite community. And he himself, in his lectures, lets it be known that he just came into the Israelite way of thinking. Before then, he was a Christian. And that's okay, because many of us came from Christianity. But the thing that behooves me the most about this is, how do you have less than 5 to 7 years, and I'm giving you some years because you don't even got that. How do you have less than 5 to 7 years in the Israelite community, and you already got 5, 6, 7 books printed, and several more, as you say, on the way? There are people in the community who may confuse you. They walk around with beautiful, and I need you to see me as I'm talking, beautiful African garments, cultural garments, so that you'd look at them and say, they look like a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when they open their mouth to speak, some of them, they're so eloquent, they're so culturally aware that you say they sound like they are related to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But until you hear their teachings, where they begin to teach you that homosexuality is not the real sin of Sodom, then you know you was fooled. A lot of people look the part and don't live the part. That's why I make it my business to present myself to the community for the most part in the way that most people look when they just come in. Because I know if I'm relatable to the audience I'm speaking to, they're more apt to hear my message. I know if I'm more relatable to the audience that I'm speaking to, I know that that gives them a greater edge in actually giving ear to me. Because most people won't interact with people and persons that they can at least relate to. While if you check the pedigree in our community, it's always the people who look the part the most that's out here doing the most when it comes to breaking the law. And I don't even gotta name their names, because y'all all know who they are. They've long been exposed. It's always the people that the people think is the person. Oh, it gotta be Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. He's from Ghana. Every time he speaks, it sounds like this. So you assume that it has to be authentic, and that it has like that weird lisp behind it, which gives, I don't I don't know, but it makes you feel comfortable, I guess. Let me finish playing this video, because I could really make a person cry with the truth.
You know what I'm saying? He's going to start a class here in the camp that's going to be running. And it's a following that allows him to be in a position to teach people. That's a great thing. You embrace that. That's what Chief Men is made out of. That's right. That's what Chief Men. He called that for himself. He claimed that because of his deeds and his actions out there. For real. And you know what? As an organization, we get to go along too. That's what Chief Men do. They get out there, they move and shake and make things happen and bring their organization with them. That's right. And he showed himself approved as far as dedication and adherence to our codes here. You can't beat that. When they were to do, I would like to call up a teacher would be Chief Amaah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
And just as he's finished announcing in the hearing and the eyesight of the people that I am no longer simply Moreh Avdiel, because I had long been recognized as a Moreh by this time, but I am now a leader in the Israelite community, Chief Avdiel, a title taken right out of the book of Deuteronomy, where it says, you shall appoint chief men and judges throughout all the gates, throughout all the borders that you will inhabit, throughout all your dwellings. That's even in captivity. You got to have rank and file. People always inbox me, Zion Lex, we need this, we need that. We need this, we need that, Zion. We need a brother, a body of men with rank and file. I say, keep following what we're doing, because we may call on you next to fill that seat. We've been moving in rank and file. And after I was introduced with the title Chief Moreh Avdiel Ben Levi, they now call me up to speak and have something to say about it. And I want you guys to listen to the words that I'm going to say as I'm receiving this title of distinguishment by the elders in my community. I want you to listen very clearly to the words that I say. Oh, who's that guy? He look kind of familiar. Is that Zion Lex? And who is that elder that just stood up? That just saluted me in the way that we do in our community? Huh? From Chicago to Brooklyn? Huh? From the El Rukins to the Israelite? Huh? How do we salute me? Is that Chief Principal who been in this way of life since the 60s? Is that Nasi Gadol, Chief Principal? Huh? Who been living this way of life longer than most of us have age? So you damn right when I tell you I am not a Facebook teacher. I am not a YouTube teacher. I'm a teacher's teacher. Put some respect on it.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all and praise to God by nature for us. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Also giving due respect to our leader, Chief Principal, And also all of our chief men here present, Chief Nathaniel, Prince Nathaniel, Prince Yakayo. Also giving due respect to our princesses in Israel. Our mothers, our wives, our sisters, to the entire congregation, I bid you in the tongue of our ancient forefathers when I say Shabbat Shalom, Shalom, Aleichem.
Shabbat Shalom, Shalom, Aleichem.
Okay, I wasn't ready for the introduction. Wow, you know, I've been knowing myself for a long time, and I have definitely appreciated coming out of Shema Israel. You know, as many people may not know, I actually started at a place called Beth Shalom, which is not too far from here. And I stayed with them maybe 6-7 months. And shortly after, it was suggested to me that I check out this other camp that started to make a lot of noise. They've been around. For years, but they just started this new place in San Antonio. I said, okay, let's go check them out. Then we're gonna come back. By the time of 20 minutes into sitting down in these seats over 20 years ago, I looked at the brother who bought me and I said, I don't want to go back. And that's a true story. But I did go back to pay my respect. And what I mean by I didn't want to go back was I felt more impacted here, which you have a prerogative to do, to choose. You gravitate to where your heart moves. And my heart was still moved in this place. So it's an honor, 20-something years later, to have such an honor bestowed upon me.
What I'm essentially saying is, I watch people in the Israelite community, in that congregation in particular, be promoted several years before this is happening to me. And I said, it never deterred me, it never swayed me, it never moved me, because I'm not doing this for a promotion. I am not dedicating my entire life to the Israelite community and the Israelite way of life and to the dissemination of truth to the best of my ability to be recognized as any self-appointed teacher or even appointed teacher. But I am simply doing this because it is the thing to do. I am simply doing this because this is what we're supposed to be doing. And it just so happens that my community and the elders in my community wanted to give me the honor and distinguishment of receiving a title that would reflect the community work, congregational work, the labor in Torah that I have for well over 20 years. Which apparently can be erased by somebody who can come on Facebook within 3 years, call themselves a rabbi, and speak with a nice West African / English accent, the way you feel that they have a connection to the culture because of how they're speaking. And because they're speaking like they're from the continent, and it has like this man lisp, and it sounds like it's kind of weird, but it's still authentic. You're so moved to follow them because they're so, I don't know. But what I do know is this: you cannot fake lineage. You cannot fake the titles that you hold, because somewhere, somebody, a group of people should be able to witness to what you say you are. And you have no witnesses to what you say you are. Now that I warmed up the room, I'm going to ask the family just once more, thumb up the video and share the live, because here is where the presentation begins. That was just a warm up. I hope y'all ready. And now let me go into my email and let me pull out my PowerPoint presentation for today. One of the major issues in the Israelite community at this junction in time is that everybody wants to be recognized as a chief, a leader, an elder. You know, I know it all. I have the keys to the city. Israelites out here acting like they got the keys to the city of Jerusalem and ain't even got the keys to their house. You got Israelites out here that's acting like they got the keys to the wisdom in the Torah and don't even have the keys to get in their house. But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something. I hope that what occurs today becomes a learning lesson. And I hope that today invites anybody who has a public grievance with me to come out and air it out publicly too, so that I could also address you once you do that. Having said that, here we go. Okay. Nope, that's not what we wanted. Come on, wrong screen. There we go. That's what we want. There we go. That's what we want. There we go. That's what we want. There we go. And that's what we want. Moderators, be on guard. I'm in presentation mode. Be on guard, moderators, because you know they're about to come in here big mad. You know they're going to send people in here big mad because they ain't going to do it themselves because they're not built like that. So they're going to send people in here big mad. So moderators, get on guard. Get on guard, get on guard. And here we go. Today's presentation is entitled, The Sin of Sodom in the Old Testament, New Testament, and the Oral Tradition. I caught wind of a video that the so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah played on his YouTube channel last night, where he attempted to respond to me, albeit not calling my name. But if anybody's been familiar with the back and forth bantering in the last day or two, you'd know that he was directing those comments towards me. When he emphasized the Zohar and the esoteric and how some of you accept it, I'm literally the only one in the Israelite community that talks about it. So, you know, as men, when we want to be specific, we be specific. I'd respect you more if you just said my name. Because I'm going to say your name, so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. I'm going to say your name. Apparently, you wanted to become famous. The only problem is when most people envision wanting to become famous, they envision the heroes. They envision that positive fame. You know, King David. You know, the man who you and your little underlings are going on Facebook to describe as a detestable human being, and how the writers of the Bible have changed the narrative and have made King David a hero when in fact he's a detestable human being. I hope all of you who follow the so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah are really paying attention to what he's writing on his Facebook, Basil. I hope y'all see what Basil is writing on his Facebook and what he's teaching out here. And then I hope you remember that that's the man you call your teacher. He's on Facebook saying that the writers of the Bible are dishonest in the way that they've been characterizing King David. I don't know no Israelite in the world because ain't no way, boy, no real Israelite is going to be up here talking about our ancestors are moving in the same way contra against those cultures and traditions that the Bible speaks against, even when it says in several places all throughout the Bible that the pen of the scribes is divinely led, so that their words are the words of God. The Torah is said in the book of Exodus to be written with the finger of God. That puts a stamp of credibility on the Torah. And in case you thought that that's just the Torah, in the book of Hosea, the prophet, I believe it's chapter 12, verse 3, Hosea says literally verbatim, God wrote the Torah. Which means teachings and reflects all of the revealed word of God. So how is this guy that some of you call your teacher, that some of you are coming out of your pockets to pay for his classes, how is he allowed by you to be out here saying that our ancestors were dishonest in the way that the Torah was penned? Because David is really an imbecile. David is really a hypocrite. David is really a wanton, lawless of a man. And the only way that he's reflected as a good person, even though the Bible says he has sinned, is because the rabbis changed and spin the narrative. Y'all ever seen the movie Sparta? Because these are your teachers. These are the people that you guys are out here calling your teachers. In the words of Joshua, I'm going to make it plain and simple. If y'all don't want to believe that what our ancestors penned is accurate, that's fine. You're entitled to that. In fact, it may reflect something about you. You might not be of the seed of the children of Israel. Because as it was in the days of Egypt, as our ancestors were led by the Creator through the hand of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. The Bible says a mixed multitude went out with us, because there was a mixed multitude among us during the redemption process. The same mixed multitude that existed in the time of Egypt, who are not Israelites but were among Israelites, are the same mixed multitude that you find today around Israelites but are not really Israelites. And since our brother wants to attempt to follow me in the oral tradition, something he should have enough common sense to know that he cannot do, I got a 20-year head start on you on that, guy, which is why in a couple of moments I'm about to expose that you don't even know how to use it. But wait on that. Y'all gonna love this live. In the oral tradition, it says, all of the wicked events that occurred in the wilderness were led, listen to me carefully, were led, L-E-D, by the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, the Israelites who were not Israelites, the people who were among us but wasn't one of us, the Erev Rav, which in Hebrew is translated into English as the mixed multitude. And the oral tradition says all of the events in the wilderness, in the narrative of Numbers and Exodus and Leviticus and even Deuteronomy, because it was the Erev Rav that led us in sin in each and every one of those cases. The mixed multitude, the people who were around us that really wasn't vetted as real Israelites. The people who we had among us who they look like Israelites, kind of, sort of, but not quite. The people who are among us that, kind of sounded like they're Hebrew, but they out here having Europeans disrespect them because they don't know Hebrew. Are y'all aware that the so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah is being dragged on YouTube even by the European community because he is butchering the Hebrew language with his concept of the term Airway, the Airway tribe, and how they exposed in a video that he can't even read Hebrew? So y'all, wait. Y'all really want me to go there? Hold on. I got time today. Hold on one moment. Let me segue a moment for you guys. Let me do this real quick. Let me do this real quick for you. Let me show you something real quick. Let me show you who your teacher is. Bruce. This video, as you can see, is entitled Exposing Akwetey Basil Amaah and the Hebrew Airway position. I'm going to put the link to this in the chat room so that you guys could save it. And when you get some time, I want you to look at it. Because how you calling yourself rabbi and you can't even read or speak biblical Hebrew? At the very least, a person who is ordained the right way as a rabbi should at least know how to read and speak biblical Hebrew. But as you guys are about to see when you watch that video, he even has the Caucasian community out here dragging him for misrepresenting not just our community, but even the Hebrew language. And they also exposed that he's a self-appointed rabbi with no lineage and no record of anyone conferring upon him that title. And he's yet to give a meritable response, except to say, I made myself one. That's how I'm a rabbi. But these are the people that y'all out here calling teachers in the Israelite community, huh? These are the people that you guys are out here saying, I'm signed up to King of Kings Academy with so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. Ooh, just the sound of it sounds like he knows something, right? It has like that authentic African sound. Let me just say something quick. I am an African. Don't get it twisted. I am an African. How are you an African? Because that's the term used today to describe a great landmass that we call a continent, of which Israel is Northeast Africa. But I gotta tell you, there are people who know how to sell fire in hell. There are people who know how to sell ice in Eskimo land. There are people who come into the Israelite community and say, I am from Ghana, and we accept you, brothers, Israelites over here in America. We accept you, and we want to learn from you. Huh? What you mean you accept me, and then you ask me to learn? You want to learn from me? because that's what Rabbi Akwetey Amaah did when I met him. And I got the receipts to show it. Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, so-called rabbi, when I first caught wind of him, is because he reached out to me and spoke so highly about my scholarship. If you guys are friends with me on Facebook, you'd know that I recently shared a video. Let me highlight a comment from one of his supporters. Let me highlight a comment. Cherry Huey from the UK, who I somewhat know from Facebook, she says, "It's so sad that this is how leaders in the Hebrew community choose to behave. You could have probably dealt with this over the phone, but instead your ego is out there, even putting on fake accents." I'm glad she jumped out the window to do that, because there's something called receipts. Let me show you guys something real quick. I'm going to hold her comment up there. I told y'all, I got time today. Let me show y'all something real quick. Let me show you guys something really quick. She said that, and this is somebody who also used to be all over my posts, liking my posts, but apparently, because she's now in his school and in his training, I guess she feels that she has to defend him. To which I say, I get it. That's your teacher now, so you feel compelled to defend him. Even though, let's not forget, Cherry Huey, that you once invited me to come speak to the UK because you valued my scholarship. Or did you forget that? So your comment says, "It's so sad that this is how leaders in the Hebrew community choose to behave. You could have probably dealt with this over the phone, but instead your ego, my ego, guys, is out there, even putting on fake accents." Let me take you guys to Exhibit A, and let me show you how what she's saying has no merit. I told you guys, I got time today. And let me show you just how much time I have today. People should know when you come my way, you better be very well prepared, because I'm always over-prepared. People should know that when you come my way, you had better be very well prepared, because I am always very prepared. Watch this. We're going to hold your comment up there, because apparently you want to become famous too, so I'll help you. What is this? What is this on the screen? What is this? Let me make the screen bigger so you guys can see it. Is this from Rabbi Akwetey Amaah's Facebook page? What is he saying? Let's see. There he goes, by his Facebook name, and I could be butchering it, Basilinaire Basilios. Basilinaire Basilios. He has my phone number too, Cherry Huey, but instead of calling me, he went on Facebook and said this about me. "The quest for YouTube likes and thumbs up and shares makes people behave uncultured." I'll even read it in his voice, since you said my accent is fake. I'll try to do a better job, okay? "The quest for YouTube likes and thumbs up and shares makes people behave uncultured. The chase for YouTube money does that." What else did he say? Here is Basilios, and I could be butchering his name, I don't know. Here is what he says also, and again, Cherry, let me just read her comment again. "It's so sad that this is how leaders in the community choose to behave. You could have probably dealt with this over the phone, but instead your ego is out there, even putting on fake accents." Okay, so we already showed the first receipt of him not using his phone to call me. By the way, he's been taking shots on me for Facebook for months now. And when I finally respond to him openly, I'm bad, You see, I'm different than y'all because I don't throw something and hide my hands. I don't talk about you privately and then don't say the same thing publicly. The same energy that you pursue me with, I'm going to pursue you with that energy and some. So when you come my way, make sure you're ready. Because I'm always ready. Here we go. And like I said, I'll even try to read it in his language a little better since she says I'm doing his accent wrong. On Monday, I will cough so that those defenders of the so-called Hebrew community. Woo! Now, I might not be the smartest person out here. But I know when someone's throwing shade at a community versus an individual. Because you just exposed yourself, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. Because if your issue is with me, why didn't you simply say, on Monday I will cough so that those defenders of the so-called Hebrew Zion legs, why didn't you call me so-called? Why are you referring to the Hebrew community as the so-called Hebrew community? This is what I told you earlier, guys. You got to watch these people. They'll come into our community with open arms and say, we are your brothers. And not everybody. Shout out to Remy Ilona. An Igbo from Nigeria and my brother. Not every African on the continent behaves like this. In fact, most of them don't. But you have a couple of them slick ones that do. They'll come with their arms open and say, we accept you. We accept you. You accept me? You just found out about the Israelite culture 3 years ago. I beg to differ on who should be accepting who. But he feels, and this is why he doesn't like Deuteronomy 28, because it doesn't include the Africans on the continent, he thinks. He describes our community as the so-called Hebrew community because you guys are not aware of the teacher that some of you are following. If you follow in his teachings, he says Deuteronomy 28 does not validate the transatlantic slave trade. He says the transatlantic slave trade is not in the Torah, and that is not a measure or a means for calling oneself an Israelite. Why is that, Rabbi Akwetey? Because you're not able to connect that to the continent, so you feel a little left out? Is that the reason why? But one thing I know, with the little bit of intelligence that I may have left, I don't know, because according to you, I'm uncultured and, I'm not really there. Even though I can literally pull videos and will pull videos of you bragging about my scholarship. You even have one video where you're trying to sell your book on women's empowerment, but you push my book in the video first and tell your following to follow my book. You guys want to see that? Hold on. I got time today. Hold on. I got time today. Let me tell you how slick some of these people are. I'm going to show you his video in a couple moments, but let me finish addressing this sister. I'm not going to go too hard on her because she is a sister and I'd rather box with men. So I'm not going to disrespect this sister, but I am going to show her how biased and even silly her original comment is. Because while she can fix her face to say it's so sad that this is how leaders in the Hebrew community choose to behave, you could have dealt with this over the phone, but instead your ego is out there even putting on fake accents. Notice she has no problem with her rabbi Akwetey Amaah, who nobody knows made him a rabbi, who nobody knows who made him a rabbi in the first place. She does not have a problem with him going on Facebook instead of calling my phone to say, on Monday I will call, so that those defenders of the so-called Hebrew community, because guys, language is key. That's why I teach so much about language. He calls us, the blacks in America, the blacks in the Caribbean, the blacks throughout the diaspora, who believe that we are Israelites and believe that we can base it on the Torah. He calls those of us blacks in the African diaspora who believe that there are certain parts of the Torah which validates the transatlantic slave trade as prophecy that Israelites would come into captivity. Like his European counterparts, he believes that we are not the real deal. But he will tell you in all of his videos, when you go on his page and when you buy into his teaching, that the Africans on the continent are the real Israelites. And that is literally why he just called you to your face, mind you, the so-called Hebrew community.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
So, Cherry, goodbye. I got time today, guys. Let me show you something else. So, again, I try not to go in certain directions with certain people, but sometimes my hand is forced. Sometimes, guys,
if you want to have a better view,
sometimes my hand is forced. This same rabbi that you guys just watch throw the ultimate shade on his Facebook page about me and even about you, the Israelite community. This guy, literally, that you guys just watch throw the ultimate shade about me on his Facebook page and about you when he called you the so-called Israelite community. That's why I told you guys, whenever y'all see him on Facebook, make sure to call him the so-called rabbi. Keep the same energy that he kept when he called you the so-called Hebrew community. Whenever you guys see him on Facebook, make sure that you address him as the so-called rabbi. And after I break down his scholarship, because I still didn't get there yet, you're going to see further why he is a so-called rabbi. What I found interesting about this video that I saw him share a while ago is that the same guy who today is trying to convince people that Zion Lex is uncultured and not intelligent and doesn't know the Torah is the same guy who once was trying to sell his book on women's empowerment. And in order for him to do so, he had to stand on the back of someone who was well known and more quote unquote popular in the Israelite community than himself. So he uses my book to stand upon so that he can sell his book. Don't believe me. The proof is always in the pudding. Watch this.
if you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these two books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben Levi.
Wait. Is this the same guy that he just described as uncultured? Is this the same guy that he, instead of calling my phone, like his follower Cherry Huey says, he goes on his Facebook, something she thinks is wrong, people should reach out to each other, even though her teacher been on Facebook throwing shade on several things that I teach about the oral tradition. He's been doing it for months now. And I've been noticing it, but I haven't been saying anything because people are entitled to their difference of opinion. And I figured that I wouldn't really address it with him because I didn't really see any malice behind it. That's what he believes. He believes that the oral tradition isn't a tradition at all. And just because I believe it is and he believes it is not, does not mean that I should feel compelled to attack him. But at some point, we got to draw the line on what we are going to speak out about. We have to draw the line at some point on those things that we will be vocal on. So even though for months now, and I got all the receipts, I'm going to share them with you guys. For months now, he's been on Facebook shading videos that I've been putting out. I put out a video a couple of months on the oral tradition, its view on Yeshua, and he started writing Facebook posts like, just because the oral tradition is older doesn't make it right. And he does that literally hours after my video goes viral about what I say about the oral tradition in relationship to Yeshua or Jesus. So he's been throwing shots at me for months. And because I know he's a coward of a man, because he would rather throw a shot at me than call me with his difference of opinion.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
I said to myself, let him have that. Because I know if he was to at me, put my name on it, that he couldn't hold weight. He couldn't actually defend it. I know he couldn't stand toe-to-toe with me in the intellectual arena on these topics. So I said, let him have that. That's fickle. A lot of people in the community don't believe the oral tradition. There's people in the community that I love and respect that don't believe in it. Just because he doesn't share that view, that's not a deal breaker for me. But the moment he came out and said, King David and Jonathan's relationship is a relationship we got to re-examine because that's homosexual. I said, nah, it's time that I come out and be vocal. I have no friendships in this way of life that trumps my allegiance to my God.
Yonder Marco.
When he said that the real sin of Sodom is hospitality and has nothing to do with homosexuality, I said that's dangerous. Because there's people out here who are fighting all kinds of demons as they come into this community. Everybody's demon is different. You might have someone coming into the Israelite community who is Delivereth. Y'all remember that dude? Delivereth. And they might be fighting their demons. And you making silly and stupid posts like the posts you made, saying that the real sin of Sodom and Gomorrah is not homosexuality at all. He didn't say a little bit. He said at all. Then you give license to those people who are fighting those demons, who are trying to get delivered. You're giving license to them to entertain that behavior. So the first thing I want to show you guys is beware of what's called the duplicitous tongue, the forked tongue, the snake tongue. The people who will welcome you with open arms so that they can use your popularity, in his accent, your popularity, to gain momentum and attention in the community, because that is what he did. I got several receipts that when he first surfaced in the Israelite community, he was sharing my posts more than me. And some of you who follow me on social media know I be sharing my posts like hell, because I don't expect that anybody should promote me other than me. So I go hard for me. If not me, then who? As it says in the oral tradition. So he was sharing my posts left and right to the point where I said, hey, brother, thank you. And he said, no, it's okay. It's my honor, elder. And then I finally had what I believed at the time was an honor of meeting him in Detroit. We both were honored at a conference in Detroit. At that conference, Divine Prospect, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, myself, and several others were given distinguished honors.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
And I don't know if the award that I received bothered him a bit, because my good brother Divine Prospect wasn't bothered by my award and what it represented. If anybody should have been bothered, it should have been him, because people consider us neck and neck and toe and toe. But Brother Divine Prospect is a brother of great humility, and I'm sure he figured, today Zion, tomorrow me. Maybe next year I'll be acknowledged for that. But right now I'm enjoying this. Divine Prospect was honored in Detroit while on a cruise with myself and hundreds of Israelites. Shout out to Dr. Kenneth Howard and his wife, Tawana Howard. We were all honored with awards. Divine Prospect got an award for community work. Shout out to Brother Divine Prospect.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
Because I don't know nobody in the Israelite community on this side of the diaspora here in America that does more community work than my brother Divine Prospect. He deserved that award. Divine Prospect is opening up chapters of Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, shout out to them, all over the country. If that's not inspiring to Israelites, I don't know what else will be. So he rightfully deserved that. Rabbi Akwetey Amaah received an award, I believe, and I could be wrong, for being an Israelite outside of the diaspora, almost like internationally, because he's from Ghana, he's from Africa, who is now merging onto the world scene and doing things. And he deserved that, I believed. But I was the only one at the award ceremony in Detroit on the cruise, as we were cruising on the border of Detroit where it meets Canada, who received Scholar of the Year as an award.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
I don't know if our brother, so-called, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, may have felt a way about that. And one thing that I could say is, it's always today me, tomorrow you. There's always an opportunity to come back and get what you believe is yours. But what you don't have to be is a crab in the barrel. You don't have to reach out to your brother with extended arms so that you can use your brother to push yourself up in the community, because I promise you, most people didn't even know who Rabbi Akwetey Amaah was and is until I started sharing him on Facebook and promoting him on Facebook. And they say hindsight is 20/20, and if I had the opportunity, I would do it all over again. I would share him, I would promote him, because I believe in the very old school saying, believe that a person is who they say that they are until they show you otherwise. And you have clearly showed me otherwise. So I no longer believe who you say you are. And from this point, if anybody asks me about you, I will let it be known that you are a fraud. And how could a man of honor go on video? This is not a Facebook post. This is not a text message. Sometimes on Facebook, in anger, we say things that we ain't really thinking, all of us, and then we go and delete it. Sometimes you texting somebody and you say things that your heart is not really in, and you wish you could delete it because it's already out there. But when you take the time to say something in a video, before you hit publish, you could have had the opportunity to take that back. How am I uncultured, unlearned, and not a scholar, so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, when you was trying to sell your woman's empowerment book, you used me and my book as a plateau to give you an audience. But don't believe me.
If you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these two books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben Levi, popularly known as Zion Lex. This is a masterpiece.
An uncultured man. In his words, that's what he calls me, right? From the so-called Hebrew community, that's what he called us, right? Created a masterpiece that he wants to share with his following and with his audience. An uncultured man who does things for YouTube likes and Facebook notifications, and it's all about money and YouTube, created a masterpiece that he wants to share with his audience. Where I come from, that's called a duplicitous spirit, a forked tongue, and a snake. Rabbi, so-called Akwetey Amaah, you are a fraud.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
If you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these two books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben Levi, popularly known as Zion Lex. This is a masterpiece.
Okay, that's enough of that. Now let's get into the scholarship. I hope you guys are warmed up. How you feeling out there, family? Talk to me. Thumb up the video and share it live. How y'all feeling out there, family? That was all the warm-up. That was all the warm-up. Because I had to have you understand what's going on before we even went into the details of the argument. I had to have you really understand why I'm even moved to do this, because people would have questioned, hey, Zion, why are you doing this? Just as that sister who asked me to come to UK to teach, who is now his student, felt compelled to diss me on behalf of him. By the way, I don't know no man that sends a woman to represent his ideas. Because as Tazariak said to Brother Polite, rightfully so, when two men are arguing, when your wife jumps in to yell and say something, that might force that other man to curse and disrespect your wife. That's why, as a woman, as a sister, you should let men be men in those situations. When you have two men in a dispute, women don't jump in to have something to say, because what happens when that man now turns around and disrespect that man's wife? What was once a conversation is now a violent encounter. And let me now bring you to the scholarship. I hope you guys are ready. When I'm finished with this, guys, you will have wow. Shout out to Yakolia. She says, the first man I know who started teaching the sin of Sodom isn't homosexuality, ended up leaving his wife of 20 plus years, and he's not living in and he's now living in Africa with his husband.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
She said, the first man I know who started teaching the sin of Sodom isn't homosexuality, ended up leaving his wife of 20 plus years, and he's now living in Africa with his husband. I hope you guys are ready. When I finish presenting this, you will have no doubt in your mind why I felt compelled to do what I'm doing here today. You will have no doubt in your mind why I felt compelled to address him on the level that I am addressing him today. And you will have no doubt in your mind that his meritless comment, which said that we are a so-called Hebrew community, actually reflects that he is a so-called rabbi and so-called teacher and so-called author and even so-called man. Watch this. I always tell people, when you come my way, be over-prepared. Be over-prepared. I annoy people who know me. I'm the type of dude, when it's time to go to war, I'm bringing everything and something. I always annoy people who know me, because when it's time to go to war, I bring everything and something. When you come for me, you better be prepared. Watch this. What they said, you're going to learn today. You're going to learn today. Here we go. There we go. All right. So again, it's titled The Sin of Sodom in the Old Testament, New Testament, and Oral Tradition. And here we go, family. Here we go. Rabbi so-called Akwetey Amaah went on his Facebook YouTube page yesterday to deliver an entire PowerPoint directed at attempting to respond to me disagreeing with him that the sin of Sodom is homosexuality. And he writes, as you can see, the sin of Sodom, the lack of hospitality. And he's going to base that on a verse in Ezekiel 16:49. Y'all know how they go, people who cherry pick through the scriptures. They got to take you through many books to prove this one point. Yeah, y'all know how it works. So here we go. He quotes Genesis 18, and he says, and I'll read, "And the Lord said, shall I conceal from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham is to become great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth are to bless themselves by him, for I have known him." I need you guys to notice that in all black bold, he highlighted known him, because he's going to go on to say in his video that I'm going to share with you at the end, he's going to go on to say in his video that the term yada'ah in the Torah does not always mean to know sexually, which is true. And by the way, there's no need to mention that, Sherlock, because nobody's saying that the term yada'ah means sexual intercourse exclusively. So already you're starting off with an ad hominem, straw man arguments. Already. Nobody's saying that the Hebrew term yada'ah exclusively means sexual intercourse, but I see how you snakily use it to try to give your point some credence. So he has this highlighted in bold black, guys, because he's going to say in the video, now clearly when the Bible says that God knew Abraham, that's not talking about sexual intercourse. And then he goes on to say in the video, well, then because the Sodomites said that they wanted to know the visitors or the angels that was with Lot doesn't mean sexual intercourse either. Because if so, that would mean that God meant sexual intercourse when he said that he knew Abraham. How many of you guys would agree, by a show of shaking my head emojis, that is the dumbest argument you have ever heard in your life? Then he says that the real issue is what we continue to read. For I have known him because he commands his sons and his households after him that he should keep the way of the Lord, to perform righteousness, which in Hebrew is tzedakah, and justice, in order that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he spoke concerning him. The show of righteousness, tzedakah, and justice. The first use of the term tzedakah in the Bible is in the tale of Abraham. Okay. Sorry. He says the first usage of the term tzedakah in the Bible is in the tale of Abraham. So, as you guys are going to see me point out repeatedly, he shouldn't be called a rabbi. One, because at the bare minimum, the term rabbi is a very high title, and no one gets to get that title in any community. You got to know Hebrew. And in some communities, even most Orthodox communities, you have to know Aramaic as well. He knows either, neither. In fact, from what I understand, he's learning from a group that has conflict with me because apparently they're using him as the next great hope to take down Zion Lex. They tried that with another guy, and that didn't work. And now they got him. And I promise you that ain't going to work. But here we go. Here's the first thing that I have to correct the so-called rabbi on. He says the first use of the term tzedakah in the Bible is in the tale of Abraham, Lot, and Sodom. Now watch this. Watch this. I'm going to take you to the Bible, and I'm going to show you common sense. I keep telling people, make sure when you come for me, you don't come alone. You're going to need a lot of people come with me. And Rabbi Akwetey, Amaah, no matter what group you ally yourself with, I promise you, you don't got enough people with you. There was a battle that took place in the Tanakh, guys, in the Holy Bible, where the children of the Israel were outnumbered. And they looked at the captain of the Israelite army, and they said, "What do you want us to do? We are outnumbered." And the captain of the host of the Israelite army said, "No, we are not. The Most High, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, he and his hosts fight for us and with us. We are many. In fact, we are more than them because we are with God."
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
So there are a lot of people out there that see me and how I move, and they say Zion is alone. That's an easy target. So we're going to gang up and call ourselves a name, and we're going to form a whole group to go against Zion. We're going to become the new paradigm. And we're all going to stand on each other's necks and elbows and arms and ears, and we're going to form like this Voltron thingy, and then we're going to go against Zion because he's alone. And then they fall because I'm not alone. God is with me. And your hand's too short to box with my God.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
So they go and they hype up somebody that's not known, and they tell him, "We could teach you Hebrew." By the way, they tried this before with another brother, and it didn't work. Not of respect, I won't say that brother's name. But I will let y'all know, if y'all only knew who y'all calling y'all leaders and teachers out here.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
So they tried that already with another brother, and they tried to teach him Hebrew. It didn't work. They wind up going at him. They wind up trying to expose him, and none of that really worked. Because while they thought I was alone, God was with me. And their hands is too short to box with God. Now they got the new hype. And they feel like he's from the continent. He's more of an Israelite than Zion ever will be. Because this group paradigm, they don't believe in the narrative of the Bible. And that's why those of you who follow them on Facebook, you see them on Facebook using all kind of profanity, grabbing their wife by the you-know-what in Donald Trump's voice. That's what their leader said on Facebook. But y'all still follow them to watch them because they are theatrical. Ignorance is comical at some times. We all got a little savage in us, right? So now they're pumping up this guy to come against me. But once again, your hand's too short to box with my God. And notice, I'm not saying your hand's too short to box with me. Because although I could box, and any of y'all from Paradigm, I hope you keep that same energy if you ever meet me in person. Because then you'd know I really could box. And I'm hoping and praying that you'd be having the same energy you have on Facebook when we finally meet in person. But in the meantime, let me show you that the newest guy they trying to uplift, he still ain't it. So y'all just saw Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. Let me just reiterate that one more time. Y'all just saw him say that the first use of the term Tzedakah in the Bible is in the tale of Abraham, Lot, and Sodom. Y'all saw it. Now let me show you that the rabbi doesn't know what he's talking about. Here's correction number 1. I hope y'all keep count, because I'm going to just keep saying correction, but y'all keep the count on which one it is. We're going to Genesis chapter 6. And let's look at the term and when it's first used in the Torah and who it's used to describe. Anybody that knows biblical Hebrew, you know that all biblical Hebrew words are rooted in a triconsonantal root. For the most part, then you have some that are biconsonantal, meaning they're rooted in 2 letters. The word Tzedakah in Hebrew is rooted in the word Zedek or Zadok. And who was the first person to be called this? Let's see. Who was the first person the Bible describes as a Zadik? Was it Abraham? As the so-called rabbi said? Let's see. This is the line of Noach. And Noach was a Zadik. And Noach was a Zadik, a righteous man. What is he talking about? No, he said Tzedakah, Tzedakah. Tzedakah, it means charity, but it also in the Bible is used to mean righteousness. It's also used in the Bible to mean righteousness. It can mean charity because your righteousness is a form of charity and giving charity is righteousness. But it still means righteousness. And the first person to be described as such was not Abraham. It was Noah. This is where the teacher appears and has to come outside every now and again to teach the teachers. Because sometimes people who are on the come up trying to level up, they forget where they are and where they occupy, and you might have to remind them every now and again. So that's the first correction. And here we go, because there's more. I'm not done. And hopefully you guys should be able to see my new screen in a couple of seconds, because now we're getting into the meat and potato of what this guy is out here teaching. So he said the rabbis translate tzedakah as charity, giving to the needy. I need you guys to focus on something. The operative words used here. The rabbis say, basil, When since you cared what the rabbis say, you hypocrite? You're all over Facebook saying that the rabbis are twisting words. So why are you using them to validate your words? I know why. Because you are a snake. You are duplicitous. You have a forked tongue. You say, hey, my brother today. And tomorrow when your brother's back is turned, you say he is my enemy. He is uncultured. And he comes from the so-called Hebrew community. How does a man who constantly is in the habit of saying that the rabbis are twisting words? He even said that the rabbis are the one who got us convinced that David is not a true sinner. But he quotes the rabbis here when it agrees with his argument. Where I'm from, that's called a forked tongue. Where I'm from, that's called being duplicitous. Where I'm from, that's called use a whole snake. But let's keep going as the rabbi continues to expose that he is not a rabbi. Now he goes to the actual oral tradition. That's when I sat up because I watched the presentation. You know, when people tell me that people have videos on me, I'll be like, man, I ain't going to watch it. But I ain't going to lie to y'all. I'll be liking the effery. So I'll be going, I get my popcorn, and I watch it. Because if they have something that merits a response on some level, I say, let me respond. For the most part, I don't be responding because they don't be having anything that merits a response. But he had something that merited a response in his video, a couple of responses. How he twisted the scriptures to fit his sick and twisted narrative that King David is truly a sinner and the Bible's writers are lying to try to cover it up. That's what he teaches, and his underlings. And he also teaches that there's no homosexuality among the Sodomites, and that is not what God destroyed them for. And that is why I said those comments elicit my response. Watch what he quotes from the oral tradition. This is interesting. There was a young woman who would take bread out to the poor people in a pitcher so the people of Sodom would not see it. The matter was revealed, and they smeared her with honey and positioned her on the wall of the city. And the hornets came and consumed her. And that is the meaning of that which is written. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom is great. Genesis 18:20. And Rav Yehuda says that Rav says Rabbah is an allusion to the matters of the young woman who was skilled for her act of kindness. It is due to that sin that the fate of the people of Sodom was sealed. I don't think the rabbi knows how to read, even English.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
Because he puts here in bold pink. And I'm just wondering why any man writing a commentary on the Bible or anything is using pink to bold, highlight certain things. I don't. As men, there's just certain things that we don't do. It's called man law. Every man watching the live right now knows I'm not exaggerating, knows I'm not reaching, knows I'm keeping it 1,000% correct. Ain't no man in here ever used pink to highlight no damn PowerPoint presentation.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
So that might reveal, as Yakolia suggested, when she said that the first guy that she met that said that the sin of Sodom is not homosexuality, left his wife of 20 plus years right after and moved to Africa to settle with his husband. Yeah, I realize why it's in bold pink now. He says in bold pink, according to the Talmud, the cry God descended to investigate was not that of homosexual acts. So let me just straighten something out really quick, because at first I thought, and I've been thinking this for a while now, that the rabbi has a problem reading Hebrew, and that's okay because he's new to the Hebrew language. But then, after watching his PowerPoint presentation, I said to myself, does he read English? Because look at this. The quote that he has up here says, and Rava Yehuda, and let me blow that up bigger so you guys can see. The quote that he has here says, there we go. And Rava Yehuda, find that, guys, it's right next to 1820. 1820, look at that line that says 1820. I want everybody to read along. No hidden hands here. We are being fair and honest. No hidden hands here. We're being fair and honest. And Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Rabbah is an allusion to the matter of the young woman who was killed for her act of kindness. Listen to this. It is due to that sin that the fate of the people of Sodom was sealed. Rabbi, so-called, Akwetey, Amaah, do you even know how to read English? Because the source that you're quoting is not saying that it's due to this act that Sodom was destroyed. It says that this act was the final strum, that which sealed the fate of the people of Sodom. So do you even read English?
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
You remind me of Brother Jabari, which means we could also call you the Hebrew Jabari from this point onwards. Because I could use your own information to cut you with. And it shows that you were so in a rush to make your brother look bad. Oh, my bad, I'm not your brother, right? Because I'm from the so-called Hebrew community, as you said. You was in such a rush to make this uncultured Zion Lex look bad that you didn't even realize that the source that you quoted does not agree with the sentiment in your statement that you're making. But let me keep going so y'all can see how the so-called rabbi is not a rabbi at all. He now goes to Genesis 19, and guys, here, I need you to look at me. He now goes to Genesis 19, and here is where things get really interesting. Family, thumb up the video and share it live. Thumb up the video and share the live. That's right, he exposing himself. I don't even feel like I'm exposing him because I didn't even show you my scholarship which disproves his sentiments. So far, I'm just showing you, since the beginning of this live to now, how he's exposing himself.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
But here we go. He now quotes Genesis 19, which says, when they had not yet retired, and the people of the city, the people of Sodom, surrounded the house, both young and old, the entire populace from every end of the city. This is a mob, a large crowd of people, especially one that is disorderly and intent on causing trouble or violence. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, and let us know them. Well, he seems to know his audience, because the crowd that engages in homosexual activity, he does have them in their proper color of pink. And here in purple, he highlights the term, let us know them, because he's about to try to instruct us that the Hebrew word used here does not mean sexual intercourse. But what I find most interesting about this is the rabbi does not know Hebrew. That is why when you see the rabbi doing videos, most of the time he never shows his face when he's attempting to read and break down Hebrew. And that's why you guys always hear me say that I don't like debating people online. I like to be in person when I debate people. There were several people that saw that offered me money to debate that I turned down because, number one, I don't do this for the money. And number two, I'm not debating somebody from behind a computer, because how do we know that they really know what they say they know? And they got 7 different pages open on their laptop, Googling, Wikipedia in. That's not your knowledge. You're borrowing knowledge. I like to debate people face to face so that we know where you at in real time. So watch this. He highlights "let us know them" because he's about to tell you that that's not what it means in Hebrew, which is most interesting because at this point we clarified that he doesn't know Hebrew. But let's keep going. God says he has known Abraham. Now, if the author tells us that the people of Sodom want to know the strangers, the visitors, the choice of the verb know, yada'ah, is deliberate in light of the context. And look what he says. In juridical context, judicial context, and I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. So let me just do something really quick. And I am wrong. I never encountered the term juridical. So that's my bad. In juridical context, the term means to interrogate, right? And juridical means relating to judicial proceedings, which is why I felt it should have been judicial. But I guess he was trying to sound a little overly intelligent because the term juridical includes judicial. But I guess you know what a lot of people like to do in the community, the brother polites. They like to use language that goes over the head of the audience because that's part of how they are able to pull the wool over your eyes. But you can't pull the wool over my eyes. Here we go. He says in juridical context, the term means interrogate. So he says the term yada means to interrogate. Okay. Let me just first say something to you guys. He showed no scriptural verse to validate that it means to interrogate. What he showed was Strong's Concordance. Do you guys remember when Dr. James White debated Elder Rakar of GOCC? And Elder Rakar doesn't know much Hebrew. And as he was debating a European Caucasian, Dr. James White, they're arguing over the meaning of a Hebrew word. And Elder Rakar says, the word is this. And James White says, no, that's not what it means. And Elder Rakar says, well, I looked it up in Strong's Concordance, so it must be this. And Dr. James White, the Caucasian, laughed, as many of us who know biblical Hebrew laughed. Because anybody that knows biblical Hebrew knows that just because something is encoded in Strong's Concordance doesn't mean that it's an accurate rendition of what the Hebrew is saying. There are several errors in the Strong's Concordance. Seeing and quoting something from the Strong's Concordance is not that which makes it true. Verifying it through the lens of Torah and other dictionaries will see to it that it's true. So if you guys remember that debate, Dr. James White said in such a classic way, I don't rely on a Strong's Concordance. I teach biblical Hebrew.
Yonder Marco.
And anybody who knows biblical Hebrew can relate. We don't rely on Strong's Concordance. Strong's Concordance are good for beginners. So I use it in my beginner's class. But when we teaching, we don't use Strong's Concordance because it's not always reliable. But the so-called rabbi says that in Strong's Concordance, it has the context of interrogation, even though there's no link in the Torah to validate or authenticate that point. Then he goes on to his second bullet point, which says, Yada as a sexual statement is only true in heterosexual relations. And for that, I'm going to let you guys hear him say that. Watch this. I'm going to take you to his video.
One kind of biblical commentary that can be found
That he played last night. I'm going to take you to his video that he played last night. And I'm going to take you to time marker 36 minutes about. And I'm going to let you hear him say, and I'm going to let you hear him say that the only time the Bible uses the term yada'ah to denote sexual intercourse is with heterosexual relations only, like with Adam and Eve. So when we find it in Genesis 19 with the Sodomites saying that they wanted to know the angels, that is not a sexual reference because that's a male-to-male reference. And Yada'ah is never used in the Torah, he says, or Tanakh, to reference male-to-male. Watch as the rabbi continues to expose himself. And let me just reshare that screen once more so y'all could be clear, and then I'll let you see his video. As you guys can see on the screen, the last bullet point in bold pink, everywhere he's talking about something funny, he identifies with his color. This is weird. Okay. He says it's never used for anything else but heterosexual relations. Guys, if I'm quoting him accurately, what he said, type a 1 in the chat room or put a fire emoji. He says it's never used for anything else but heterosexual relations. If I'm quoting him accurately, because I just want to make sure, because I messed up his other word, juridical, so I don't want to make another mistake. If I'm quoting him accurately, just type a 1 in the chat room, guys. I'll be right back. Type a 1 in the chat room if I'm at least quoting him accurately. I'll be right back. All right, here we go. So you guys see clear as day that he says that the term yada'ah is never used in the Hebrew Bible for heterosexual relations. And just so we know that I'm not editing over his PowerPoint to make him say something that he didn't say, I'm going to play his words verbatim so that you can hear him say it. Watch this. In his video entitled, "What Was the Sin of Sodom?" at the 36-minute marker, watch what he begins to say. Here we go. I hope y'all ready.
has a lot of meaning. It can mean a lot of things, including to investigate. In juridical context, the term means interrogate. They want to check if the visitors are friend or foe, whether they truly deserve hospitality or are to face hostility. Don't forget the statement that we're about to make. To know yada as a sexual statement is only true in heterosexual relations only.
Did you guys just hear him say that? That the term yada'a is only true in heterosexual relations only. If you heard him say that for yourself, please type a 1 in the chat room. If you heard him say that for yourself, please type a 1 in the chat room.
They want visitors are friend or foe, whether they truly deserve hospitality or are to face hostility. Don't forget this statement that I'm about to make. To know yada as a sexual statement is only true in heterosexual relations only.
Okay, great. So you heard him say that. And I showed you the statement in his PowerPoint. So that's 2 witnesses, right? The Bible says 2 witnesses establish a matter. You heard him say it, and I showed you that he said it. I played the video where you heard him say it. And on this screen right now, you can see that that's what he said. Now watch this. Every now and again, a teacher may have to correct a student. Every now and again, the big brother might have to tighten up the little brother. And that's what you're watching right now. Watch this. Because in Judges chapter 19, verse 22, it says, now as they were gladdening their hearts, behold, the men of the city, worthless men, beset the house round about and beat at the door and spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring out the man that come into thy house, that we may have our desire with them, or that we may know them. And just so you know that it's we may know them, it's the Hebrew word we ne da'enu. We ne da'enu. We ne and we da'enu, that we may know them. And Rabbi, they weren't asking to interrogate them. And Rabbi, they weren't asking to interrogate them, because now I'm going to pull it up on the Summer Jam screen. You know, the big screen for everybody to see. Judges chapter 19, verse 22. Now they were gladdening their hearts. Behold, the men of the city, worthless men. Excuse me. Beset the house round about and beat at the door and spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring out the man that came into thy house, that we may know them. And this is the Hebrew word, guys, for know them. I just highlighted it. Wene da'enu. Wene da'enu. You see, the rabbi is going to show you PowerPoints and pictures of what other people have designed. The rabbi ain't about to come on here and read the Hebrew live as you can watch him, because the rabbi don't read Hebrew. And that's why he's the so-called rabbi.
Yonder Marco.
So that term, we neda'enu, that means in Hebrew that we may know them. That we may know them. And how do we know it's talking about sexual behavior and not interrogation, as the rabbi says? Watch this. And the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said, "No, my brethren, no, I pray you, do not do so wickedly. Seeing that this man is coming to my house, do not carry out this vileness. Behold, here is my daughter, a virgin."
Yonder Marco.
Here is my daughter, a virgin, and his concubine. Them I will bring out now, ravish them, and do with them what seems good to you. But this man do no such vile thing. But the men would not hearken to him. So the man seized his concubine and brought her out to them, and they had the desire of her. They knew her in biblical Hebrew. And abused her all that night until the morning. When the day began to spring, they let her go. Then came the woman in the dawn of the day and fell down at the door of the man's house where her Lord was till it was light. And her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way. Behold, the woman is his concubine, was fallen down at the door of her house, and her hand was upon the threshold. And he said to her, "Up, let us be going." But there was no answer. The man took her up upon his donkey, and the man rose up and went to his place. As you guys can see, clearly this was a sexual act. And it was so that all that saw it said, "No such deed has been done or seen from the day of the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt till this day." Consider it, take counsel, and speak your mind, so-called rabbi. They're talking about interrogation here. Really? That's why he offered his virgin daughter instead? Because they really just want to interrogate them? One thing I tell people in the Hebrew class is there's a lot of things I could teach you. I've been around the Hebrew community for a very long time. And if you stay with us to the end, there's a lot of things that I could teach you. But there's one thing that I can't teach, and I don't believe any man could teach. And that's called common goddamn sense.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
But as we say, common sense ain't so common. And that's because it can't be taught. You either have it or you don't. But I'm not done. The rabbi is exposing himself at this point. I'm not really working. I'm just showing you what he says, and then I'm opening up the Torah, and I'm allowing you to decide for yourself. I'm not force-feeding this. I'm showing you what it says, and before I even get to come out and say it, you guys are already writing in the chat room that he's wrong. He's way off. Clearly, he's defeating himself. The people have spoke, and we are not the so-called Hebrew community either.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
The people have spoke, and we are not the so-called Hebrew community. We are the living descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we know it. Here we go. Now let's get back to dissecting his presentation. If y'all enjoying this, family, put some likes, subscribe, donate, support. If you guys are enjoying this, support, family, because I promise you, today is Sunday. I could be doing everything. I promise you guys, today's Sunday. I could be outside having fun and enjoying the little bit that's left of the good weather in New York City, because y'all know New York City about to get cold as hell. But instead, where am I once again? On the job. But instead, where am I once again? 10 toes down, standing for what the community upholds as true. Nah, you don't get to cross many waters and come to our borders with your hands open and tell us that you accept us when you don't even have the lineage that we have.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
You don't get to cross many waters and tell us that our views are not in sync with how you see the Bible. And we are not the real Hebrews. We are the so-called Hebrews. That's what you say. And I'm here to tell you, your hands is too short to box with the God that's with us. Here we go. So, as you guys see the so-called rabbi continuing to expose himself, let me give you some more. He highlights what the sins of Sodom is and focusing on the word abomination. Because in Ezekiel 16:49 and 50, Ezekiel highlights something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, and here is where the rabbi was very deceptive, so-called rabbi. Ezekiel highlights something in his 16th chapter, verses 49 through 50. He says that the sin of Sodom, he says the sin of Sodom, right, is that they did not feed the needy. They did not clothe those in need. They did not give bread to the poor. And the next verse says, because they committed all kinds of abominations. So how come you ain't really focused on that part? So I pointed that out in yesterday's video. And then late last night, he attempted to respond once again with a very silly half you know what response. And watch what he continues to expose himself by saying. He says now, the word abomination is used several times. And the first thing he goes to, which shows you how much of a snake and a spiritual, intellectual coward he is, he lists all the things in Proverbs, all the references in Proverbs first to describe an abomination, even though Proverbs clearly comes after the book of Leviticus, where homosexuality is first described as an abomination.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
But if we're not intelligent enough to see hidden hands and understand the nature of a serpent and a snake and their duplicitous spirit and their forked tongue, then even the way that he's presenting the information may have went over your head. Because I do know that the book of Leviticus comes before the book of Proverbs. So your first reference for abomination would have more than likely been where God called homosexuality abomination. Or at least the laws of clean and unclean, some of the foods. But instead, you go all the way to Proverbs because you really have an issue with God being against homosexuality. That's really your issue. And that's why in your latest YouTube video, oh, y'all thought I was done? Oh, man. Y'all thought I was done? That is why in your latest YouTube video, hold on, y'all. This is exhibit, I think, M or N. I'm running out of English letters soon. We might have to go into Hebrew. This is why in your latest video, you see, you don't got an issue.
So I can say that you've checked out my book, but you are yet to put.
You don't have an issue with me and my interpretations and anybody. You really have an issue with God being against homosexuality. That's what you have an issue with. And it becomes clearer and clearer the more we listen to you and the more we watch you. Because watch this. In his latest YouTube video, hold on. I told y'all, I got time today. In his latest YouTube video, look how he titles it. Can you guys see that? Hold on. There we go. In his latest YouTube video entitled LGBTQ plus discussions in Ghana, he's cautioning the ministers and those in power in Ghana not to use the Bible against homosexuality. He's cautioning them exactly. I got to highlight that comment. Monica says, anyone with the gift of discernment can clearly hear and see he's trying to justify what he himself is into. Shaking my head. And I don't know if that is true, Sister Monica. I don't know. But I do know this is the first time I ever seen, ever, in person or online, a rainbow-colored dashiki.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
I do know that this is the first time that I ever saw a rainbow-colored dashiki. So I just gotta ask, what is your real issue with people correctly saying that God has a problem with homosexuality?
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
So I just really gotta ask, is it that we are not interpreting the scriptures properly, as you suggest, Rabbi so-called that does not read Hebrew and possibly doesn't really understand how to read English either? Or is it that you and your underlings with you have a problem with God having a problem with homosexuality? Because in the words of that brother that's viral on social media, ain't no way, boy. Ain't no way, boy. Ain't no way. Boy, ain't no way. Boy, ain't no way. No Israelite leader. Boy, ain't no way. No Israelite leader on such a touchy topic where he kind of sounded like he sort of kind of looking saying like he defending the alphabet community, will come up on here with all colors, the rainbow dashiki. Because ain't no way, boy. Ain't no way. But let me continue. Because I'm not finished. So he talks about the term abomination, how, yes, the Torah uses it for it's used so many other places to describe other things. So shut up. And sometimes that's what y'all gotta say when y'all on these Facebook posts, when y'all see stuff that don't even, we talk about comments that don't garner a response. How about some comments that are so crazy and so ignorant that if you respond, they don't require an intellectual response. In fact, they require the same energy that person's given. Ignorance. On some of these people posts, instead of going back and forth disagreeing with them, I just need you to put, ain't no way, boy. I just need you to write in Sanford and Son's voice, you big dummy. Because there's so many comments out here that can be so ridiculous that it doesn't even require you to be intellectual with them. Because people who are not intellectual don't understand intellectual reasoning. They are ignorant and they only understand ignorance. And that's why he responded to me, because I didn't come extremely scholarly and he responded to me because I hurt his feelings. You know, kind of like the reason why Netflix employees is mad at David Chappelle, because he hurt the feelings of the so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah's community.
But
here we go. He lists all these things and then briefly says, and homosexuality is one of them. Very interesting. Let me take you guys to somewhere and let me show you. One of the reasons why I like to go live is because I don't just quote things that I haven't read myself. If you hear me quote something, I've read it in my hands. I've held it. I got the damn book. Let me show y'all something real quick. Some of y'all think I'm being mean when I say don't compare me to your teachers. Some of y'all think I'm mean when I say don't compare me to them people y'all calling teachers. But if you really check my work, you know that I'm not being mean, I'm not being rude, and I'm definitely not being arrogant. I'm just talking the truth. So watch this. I wanted to have this dialogue with Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. I wanted to show him what the Samaritan Tanakh has to say about these issues. But this conversation would imply that he knows Hebrew. I wanted to show him that in the Samaritan Torah, which employs Paleo-Hebrew, there are choices of words which are used there which are not used in the Masoretic Hebrew text. And I wanted to show him that his argument is destroyed in so many ways because no one in Israel is saying that, not even the Samaritans. And their text of the Torah is ironically regarded as the oldest. But the reason why I realized that I couldn't have this conversation with the so-called rabbi is because that would imply he knows Hebrew and he could actually go through this with me. So instead, I said, let me speak to him in a language that he does understand. So I looked up the term homosexuality in the Bible dictionaries. This is why the rabbi goes, most of the time, he don't show his face, guys. Because a lot of these guys that y'all call teachers and leaders and whatever the hell y'all calling them today, they just deal with PDFs. Where they cherry picking through what they want to say to people, and they just use PDFs primarily because what's the sense in buying the whole book when I just want to cherry pick it and find the thing that I like?
Yonder Marco.
So that's what they do. They get their PDFs ready. But some of us is old school. We still read books out here. We still read books out here. Some of us is old school. We actually keep books on deck, not PDFs. But here we go. What does Nelson's Illustrated Bible Dictionary have to say about homosexuality in the Bible? Let's see. Here's a screenshot. You guys want the page number? I could give that to you because I got the book. On page 515, it says, a person who was attracted sexually to members of his or her own sex. Homosexual behavior is prohibited in Scripture, Leviticus 20:13, and was a major cause of what? The divine judgment against Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
But the so-called rabbi wants you to believe that the real cause of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is that they didn't give people the bread that they have. They had bread in excess, so that's it. So the rabbi cherry picks and goes to Ezekiel, where Ezekiel points out that there were more reasons why the city was eventually destroyed. They were full of everything imaginable. In Genesis 13, Sodom and Gomorrah is compared to the garden of the Lord, to the Garden of Eden. It's also compared to Egypt in their fullness. So Ezekiel rightfully informs us that homosexuality isn't the only reason, and that the thing that tipped the iceberg was the fact that their haughtiness and their arrogance had reached a level where the Creator realized if they are not destroyed, they would infect the entire world.
Yonder Marco.
But the rabbi wants you to close your eyes to the rest of the Bible, where it clearly emphasizes that the major cause of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is illicit sexual behavior and immorality. And the rabbi is a messianic rabbi at that. So wait, so-called Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, you don't even trust and believe in the New Testament that you uphold and teach from? Because I got some quotes there. Family, throw up the video and share it live. I told y'all we don't waste time on this channel. When I go live, I go in. I don't waste y'all time. When I go live, I go in. Support this platform. Shout out to Marcel for your donation and Vincent Woods. Movie Mania, that's my brother Gabriel. Shalom to you, shout out to you. And Assalam Mahdi, thank you very much for your donation. Thank you, I received it. I'm gonna read this again. It says, homosexual behavior is prohibited in Scripture. and was a major, minor, major, a little bit, a major cause of the divine judgment against Sodom and Gomorrah. But watch this, because I don't cherry pick through the scriptures. If he want to go to the Old Testament, I'm going to go there. He didn't go to the New Testament. I know why he didn't go. Because the New Testament don't got the quote from Jeremiah, or excuse me, the New Testament doesn't have the quote from Ezekiel. The New Testament just focuses on homosexuality. And that's why out of everywhere you went, you made sure to stay out of that New Testament. Because the New Testament ain't got time for what Ezekiel talking about, because that could throw people off. The New Testament went straight for it. And that's why in all of your presentations, you totally skipped over what the New Testament had to say about it. But don't worry, I got you, because I don't cherry pick. We're going to look at everything today. Here we go. There's another dictionary. Cultural Background Studied Bible. Did he say I was uncultured? Is this the same guy that was trying to tell y'all that I showed you earlier? The screenshot of him on Facebook? Is this the same guy that said that I'm uncultured? I bet you I know a little bit more. I bet you I can quantify more about the cultural backdrop of what occurs in the Bible. Because unlike you, Akwetey, Amaah, I don't just quote PDFs and look at Safari for oral tradition comments that can cherry pick my way into having people believe into my agenda. I'll go out and I'll purchase books. So the same book that I'm quoting, I'm holding in my hand. And just like the book I had before, it's a big book. And just like the book I had before, it's a big book. And this is the difference between people who are self-appointed teachers and people who are really about this life. Because before I spend $400 on some Nikes, I'm going to spend that money to deck out my library and make sure that when I go to defend my God, my culture, my history, and my community, that I am armed and equipped and I know what I'm talking about. So in the Cultural Background Study Bible, let's see what it has to say. I wrote, scholarship occurs not just in quoting ancient sources, but also in contextualizing these sources within their cultural nomenclature. Scholarship occurs not just in quoting ancient sources. Anybody can go on Google and find an ancient source. Scholarship occurs also when we are contextualizing these sources within their cultural nomenclature. Watch this. In going to the Cultural Background Study Bible, to Genesis 19, look at what it says here. Genesis 19:5. It says, know them. Many interpretations read, have sex with them. Perhaps one of the most developed alternative interpretations to the Hebrew is, let me stop there for a moment. In the Cultural Background Bible, Study Bible, they give a verse-by-verse commentary on all of the major words and themes that are displayed throughout the entire Bible. And in Genesis 19:5, when they're commenting on the term know them, which the rabbi says is just interrogative, watch what they say. Many interpretations have read this as have sex with them. And listen to what they say. Perhaps one of the most developed alternative interpretations to the Hebrew here is the contention that when the men say that they want to know the visitors, they are expressing distrust in Lot's ability to protect the city from spies. And they want to interrogate the men. So is the rabbi completely making things up? No. There are people out here who are teaching this. But I'm about to show you in 2 or 3 slides who those people are who are teaching this. And that's when you're going to realize why the rabbi, so-called, uses pink in his PowerPoints. But let me read. The contention that when men say that they want to know the visitors, they are expressing distrust in Lot's ability to protect the city from spies, and they want to interrogate the men. Lot identifies this intention as wicked because interrogations in the ancient world were typically not gentle. In this view, Lot offers his daughters as hostages. That's interesting. To be held as warranty that he has the situation well in hand. The most devastating problem, though. So I do fair scholarship. I'm not saying that on this note, the rabbi pulled it out of a hat, out of a thin air. Nobody's saying this. No. No, this a particular group of people saying this. This particular group will get you canceled. This particular group will walk out if we don't do something about Dave Chappelle. Because what you're about to see in 2 or 3 sides from now is that the group that's pushing the ulterior interpretation that the rabbi is giving you is the group known as LGBTQ. And don't take my word for it, because I have their website pulled up. And I'm going to show you. Because as Hebrew class, as we say, this is the show me class. And that's all we've been doing since this live began. So watch this. Here's the problem with the view that the rabbi is offering. Listen to this clearly. The most devastating problem to this position is that in Hebrew, when the verb to know has a personal direct object, it always has a sexual innuendo.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
And because the rabbi don't know Hebrew, he don't know that. I'm going to read that again for the people in the cheap seats. The most devastating problem to this position that the term yada means to interrogate is that in Hebrew, when the verb to know has a personal direct object, it always has a sexual innuendo. But because the rabbi don't know the rules of the Hebrew language quite yet,
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
but because the rabbi wouldn't know the word rabbi if I showed it to him in the text itself, he doesn't realize what is the problem with his position that yada'a means to interrogate. Because as you see on the screen, the most, and this is not my words, this is straight out of the Cultural Background Study Bible. The most devastating problem to this position is that in Hebrew, when the verb to know has a personal direct object, it always has a sexual innuendo. Translation, Rabbi, it means you are the one who is uncultured. Translation, Rabbi, because it means you and whoever is in your class is the so-called Hebrew community. Guys, I got more slides. I have more evidence of his folly and his foolishness. If I stopped here right now, I wouldn't even need to go on. He exposed himself. Sometimes you have to humble a person in order for them to change. And his next course of action will let you know if he found that humility.
Yonder
And as some of you should know, and I even tried to tell him, I said in my first video, part 1, I said, there's a reason why I'm labeling these parts. This one is called part 2, because I got part 3 and 4 ready where I get super technical. I told him in part 1 that I dare him to jump out the window. And he did. And that turned out being very bad for him, as you can see. And I'll tell him now, please make me introduce part 3. Because, Rabbi, so-called, I am begging you to make me do part 3. Watch this. Somebody pointed out to him on his silly post where he says that homosexuality is not the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah. Somebody wrote this on his post. It's a quote from Deuteronomy 23, verses 17 through 18, which says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. That's interesting, Rabbi, so-called, that you chose to not even address that at all. And maybe I could throw you an alley hoop. Because to whoever chose to use that verse, that was a good comeback, somewhat. The only thing is, in the original Hebrew, it does not use the term Sodom, where you see sodomite in English. It uses this term. There shall be no Quadasha of the daughters of Israel. That's the Hebrew word for harlot or prostitute. Neither shall there be a Kadesh of the sons of Israel. So to anybody who wants to come at him, don't use Deuteronomy 23. Because I know it says sodomite in English, but the Hebrew doesn't say it. But if you want my help, I could show you how you actually could use it. Watch this. First and foremost, watch this. I always tell people that be careful about learning Hebrew because a lot of people don't really know what they say they out here teaching. I ask the average Hebrew Israelite that comes into my class, I ask everyone that comes into my class, and everybody who takes classes with me, you know I ask this. What does it mean to be holy in Hebrew? And everybody that takes the class says, set apart. And I say to them, okay, but that's not it. And they say, what? Nah, I mean, Zion. All right, you do know your stuff. I get it, Zion, you know your stuff, but everybody knows to be holy means to be set apart. I mean, this teacher says it, that teacher says it, everybody's saying it. Zion, holy means to be set apart. All right. Maybe you have some alternative definition, but most of us say it means set apart. And here is what I tell everybody. Whenever you use the term set apart as a definition for holiness, you paint yourself in an intellectual corner that you might not be able to come out of. What you mean, Zion? Because the word for harlot and female prostitute in Hebrew is spelled the same way that the term holy is spelled. Holy in Hebrew is Quadasha, Kodesh, that's holy. Change the vowels and you change the meaning. And the word Quadasha, which normally could denote that which is quote unquote holy, is now referring to a temple harlot. So why is it that the Hebrew term for temple harlot, a female prostitute, is spelled the exact same way that we spell the Hebrew word for holy, referring to holy matters? Because while holy does signify being set apart to some extent, the Torah regards the harlot also as being set apart, except that she's set apart to do that which is completely opposite and contra to the will of God.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
So the Torah also considers her set apart. A male prostitute in Hebrew is called a Kadesh because he too is set apart. He is set apart to do that which is completely immoral to the will of God. So when y'all out here saying that we set apart, you're going to have to be a little bit more specific. Because even the temple harlot is set apart. Even the male prostitute is set apart. So you simply saying set apart is not distinguishing the point that the Creator is making. And if you want to know the answer, you better join my biblical Hebrew class.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
Watch this. Watch what the oral tradition says. Here is how I could teach you, right? If we're humble enough. I've just been around a couple decades, that's it. If we're humble enough, here is how I could teach you how to still use Deuteronomy 23 and 17, even though it doesn't use the term Sodom when referring to the male, right? You saw earlier that most of us reading in English, it says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Only problem is in the biblical Hebrew, it doesn't use the term Sodom, Sodomi, sodomite. Doesn't use the term Sodom is Sodom. Sodomi would be an inhabitant of Sodom or a sodomite. And it doesn't use that term. It uses the term Kadesh, a male who's set apart to do that which is completely immoral to the will of God. And a female, she's also set apart to do that which is completely immoral to the will of God. That is why both words to describe a whore, female prostitute, and a male prostitute are both rooted in the same word for holy in Hebrew, because they are both set apart, except that they are set apart to do that which is completely immoral to the will of God Almighty. But I could show you how you could use 23:17. Make sure y'all catch this alley-oop. Don't miss this dunk. Because in the old tradition that Rabbi Akwetey Amaah likes to cherry pick when he thinks it agrees with him, since you're going to use the old tradition, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, to cherry pick the things that you think agrees with you, we're going to have you keep that same energy in the old tradition, because they also have a commentary on Deuteronomy 23:17, and let's see what they said. They said the term, there shall be no harlot. They said the law of the Kedusha, the harlot, follows because the previous section deals with a bondman. The transmitters of tradition say that the term Kadesh, the male, which they put in italics, sodomite. They say the male, which they put in italics, that's right, More. The classes we offer, you get way more than what you pay for. That's a fact. In the oral tradition, in referencing Deuteronomy 23:17, even they use the term sodomite when they comment on it. Because look at what they say. The transmitters of the tradition say that the term Kadesh, a male prostitute, sodomite, in parentheses, refers to the one who was slept with. The phrase of the sons of Israel is proof of this. Elihu said, their soul perisheth in youth, and their life is as the life of the depraved, Kedeshim, which is the female. Their soul corresponds to their life, and Kedashim corresponds to the youth. Scripture also states, and there were also sodomites in the land. 1 Kings 14:24. The house of the sodomites, 2 Kings 23:7. In the oral traditions commentary on Deuteronomy 23, verse 17, there shall not be a whore of the daughters of Zion, nor shall there be a male prostitute of the sons of Israel. In the old tradition, they still relate that to sodomites. So the next time that Akwetey Amaah tries to fool you with his stupidity, make sure you bring him to the oral tradition that he likes to cherry pick through. And don't forget the weird lisp as he's saying, psst, psst. Rabbi, you're messianic. How come you didn't quote the New Testament yet?
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
Oh, we know why. Because in the book of Jude in the New Testament, chapter 1, verse 7, it says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to what? Fornication. And going after a strange what? Flesh. Are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal life. Akwetey Amaah, why didn't you quote the book which pretty much represents what you believe as a messianic? Surely messianics believe in the New Testament. But you took us to the Old Testament. You took us to the oral tradition. You took us to strong concordance. You took us to the Hebrew language, something you don't even fully understand yet.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
But the one place that we expected you to go, because you came out the church, you came out of Christianity, is the New Testament. You purposely didn't go because you know the New Testament don't deal with what Ezekiel was talking about. They wasn't trying to highlight that because they were speaking to people that were extremely immoral, sexually immoral too. And they know if that we just start being philosophical and, it wasn't only homosexuality, it was also this. Then that throws people off and it makes them figure out, maybe I could do that. So you purposely deceive the people by not going through all the text. And in your own words, you said, and I'm quoting the Zohar, the esoteric, because some of you hold to the narrative of the Zohar. Well, Rabbi Akwetey, I'm going to keep the same energy because I am quoting the New Testament because you, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, you hold to the teachings of the New Testament. I am done. Guys, at this point, if he dies, he dies.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
Anybody ever seen Rocky 4? Throw the towel in. Throw the towel in. Stop the fight. Stop the fight. What he said? If he dies, he dies. Because we're going to kill all this nonsense today that some of y'all, without any lineage, is out here kicking on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Y'all some Facebook teachers if I ever. Y'all some Instagram and YouTube teachers if I ever seen one. I got dozens of videos where I'm teaching in the temple. Talk to me.
Yonder Marco.
And the distinguished elders in my community recognize me as a formidable representative of this thing here called Torah. And you? What Tupac told Q and Juice? You local.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
But I'm not done, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah. Guys, doesn't the Bible tell us in the book of Joshua and the book of Samuel that if we want more details on certain stories of the Bible, that we should go to the book of Joshua? So what does Joshua chapter 19 verses 1 through 7 say about the destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When the student is ready, y'all, the teacher will appear. What does that mean? If you humble yourself enough and just listen to people who have lineage. I don't like Zion. I don't like Zion. I don't like Zion. I don't like him. Why? Because he acts like he know a lot. He don't know a lot. I just probably know more than you. And the way that common sense works, the people you should be listening to, at the least bit, are the people who know more than you. But they say common sense ain't so common. The book of Joshua, chapter 19, verse 1 reads, "And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges to 4 cities, and these were their names: Sirach in the city of Sodom, Sharkad in Gomorrah, Zabnak in Adamah, and Menon in Zeboim. And Eliezer, Abraham's servant, applied to them different names, and he converted Sirach to Shahra, Sharkad to Shahrura, Zevnak to Kezeboim, and Menon to Matziodim. And by the desire of their 4 judges," listen to this, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, listen to this, y'all. The book of Joshua and the book of Samuel tells you if you want to know more about the details of the Bible stories, you got to go into the book of Joshua. And look what Joshua chapter 19, verse 3 says. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds. And by force made him to lie in them. And as they lay down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 men would stand at his feet. Sounds like gang rape to you? And as he lay down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 men would stand at his gate. Let me guess, Rabbi, to refuse him bread.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
Because, Zion Lex, they were holding him down at the head and at the legs because they wanted to wave the bread around and show him you can't get none. Zion Lex doesn't really know the scriptures. He's uncultured. He does this for YouTube likes and the YouTube money. Even though the video he put out on last night on the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, go click on that video. He got ads running through the video because it's monetized. He's getting money. But he wrote on his Facebook that I only do this for money, even though he monetized the video he put out on this. Y'all know what a snake look like? So let me guess, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, they're holding him 3 at the head and then 3 at the leg of the bed because they want to wave around the bread and say, hey, you can have, you can have, you can have. No, not for you, for me. Oh, no, not no, it's mine. Any of y'all following anybody like that, I gotta say to you, ain't no way, boy. Ain't no way, boy. Ain't no way in hell I could follow somebody like this. Because Joshua 19, verse 3 says, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they held hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. Verse 4. And as he lay down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet, and measure him by the length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end, and when he cried out to them, they would not answer. Y'all remember the Bible saying that the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah was great in heaven? But Rabbi Akwetey Amaah wants you to believe that that cry was because people were hungry and starving while other people were living fat and being greedy with their bread. That's why the man who had his arms held by 3 men at the head and his legs held by 3 men at the feet, that's why he was crying to God, because they were not giving him bread. Guys, I don't even got to go further. But verse 5 says, and if he was no longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end until the man had reached the gates of death. And if he continued to cry out to them, they would answer him, saying, thus shall it be done to a man that cometh into our land. Because in the full context of what is being said here, because they were so bountifully rich, they didn't want anybody just coming into their land. And Abraham had just finished warring with those 5 powerful Canaanite nation states. And they did not know if there would be spies sent out to various parts of the land to infiltrate some of the fattest parts to regain footing that Abraham took. So what the rabbi won't give you, but I'll give you because I'm an honest scholar, in the full context of what's being said, they gang raped and humiliated this man, not simply because they were into homosexuality, but they also wanted to deter visitors into coming into Sodom. Rabbi, why didn't you just say that? Because that's the whole story. But you purposely didn't want the homosexuality part discussed. And we want to know why. Is it because of the rainbow dashiki you wearing? Guys, I'm not done. The book of Jubilees, chapter 16, verses 5 through 9 says, and in this month, the Lord executed his judgments on Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboim and all the region of the Jordan, and he burned them with fire and brimstone and destroyed them even until this day. even as I have declared unto thee in all their works, that they are wicked and sinners exceedingly, and that, listen to this, they defile themselves and commit fornication in their flesh and work uncleanness in the earth. And in like manner, God will execute judgment on the places where they have acted according to the uncleanness of the Sodomites. Rabbi, so-called Akwetey Amaah, while I do applaud you for letting people know that homosexuality wasn't the only sin of Sodom, I would applaud you, correction, if you would have let the people know that homosexuality isn't the only reason. But that's not what you did. When you went to Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 49 through 50, you used that to say that homosexuality is completely not the reason. And that's where you lied. And that's also why you're not quoting the New Testament. Because the New Testament has something to say about liars. Because you, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, are a liar, and the truth is not in you.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
Why did you go to the oral tradition? We all know that's my lane. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? So I got a response for you in your oral tradition. The oral tradition doesn't even say it's homosexuality. There are people who are spinning the narrative. Even the oral tradition that some of the people who subscribe to the Zohar and the esoteric doesn't even say that homosexuality is the reason. So let me take you to a place in the oral tradition, Shabbat, right? 108b, where the rabbis are just talking about the other reason. And let me purposely not take you to Sanhedrin, which is the part of the oral tradition where the rabbis discuss the judgment of wicked deeds in the Torah.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
You mentioned Divine Prospect in one of your posts. Shout out to him. You said the brother who is misrepresenting the story, he's being mean, he's being nasty, he's using bad language. You see, Divine is a good brother. He didn't respond to what you said, and that's the only reason why you're saying that, sucker. Because while Divine is not a good brother, but an amazingly good brother, in my opinion, regardless of anything that has ever transpired on his behalf, my behalf, or collectively, I love and respect and value that brother. But you're not taking the time to point out that Divine is not doing this because I'm such a bad person. No, that's not what you're doing. You're bringing up Divine because he's also respected and because he also didn't respond to your foolishness.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
So while I respect Divine and his stance to either reach out to you privately and say something or not touching it at all, and I'm banking that I'm sure that's what he did, reached out to you privately, that's him. But you gotta know, I'm me. And if you disrespect this culture publicly, then I'm going to pop out and show out and disrespect you. Not privately, publicly.
Down the Marco. Down the Marco.
But why did you go to the oral tradition and cherry pick the verses? Rabbi, do you know what Tractate Shabbat discusses? Guys, we're about to close, by the way. Do you know what Tractate Shabbat discusses, Rabbi? Do you know that it's in the part of the oral tradition known as Moedim? The tractate that you'll find Shabbat is in Moedim, the holy seasons, the holy festivals. And what the rabbis deduce and discuss there are more philosophical ideas for things that we find centered around the holy seasons. And then at times they draw in conversations from other areas of the Torah, albeit to discuss it in a philosophical way. And that is why in Shabbat, they were speaking about Ezekiel 16, verses 49 through 50, because they wanted to give a more in-depth and philosophical look at the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, to point out something that very little people speak on. The fact that homosexuality is not the only reason that the city was destroyed. But you, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, you're very deceptive. You pointed out that one verse in the oral tradition and tried to use it, and even the Ramban, my guy, the guy I rock with, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, shout out. Esoterics of esoterics for those who know. Then you tried to use Pirkei Day Rabbi Eliezer, a work you wouldn't even know if my video exposing that he showed what the true color of the Israelites was when I did it on YouTube and Facebook a couple of years, which you were one of the first people to say, oh, wow, never even heard of this book. And you come back to try to use it in a dialogue with me? You want to use the oral tradition against me? I know I look like I'm alone, but there's many with me. I know I look like I'm just one person, but I'm not alone. In fact, my God is with me, and your hands is too short to box my God. Let me show you something, Rabbi. In the oral tradition that you did not quote, which is Sanhedrin 109a, verses 8 through 10, the Mishnah, that's the oral tradition, not Rabbi Nachman. As intelligent as they are, anybody who knows the oral tradition, we can literally say the hell with the Ramban's interpretation on what it has to say. We can literally say to hell with Rabbi De Eliezer's interpretation on what it has to say. Because anybody that knows the oral tradition knows that the Mishnah is the core of the oral tradition. And that's ultimately what we're checking for.
Yonder Marco. Yonder Marco.
And Rav Yehuda, as in Yehuda Hanasi, the redactor of the Mishnah. Are we teaching now, Rabbi Akwetey Amaah? Pull up a seat. You should have took the Hebrew class that I offered you. Instead, you went and took it with a group that's against me. Why? Because the same guy you once wanted to learn from and use his books to try to sell your books, now you want to be bigger than me? Listen, I am nothing. You don't got to do all that to be bigger than me. You could just call me and I'll go publicly and say everybody's bigger than me, because I'm not interested in being the biggest one out here. I'm interested in doing what's right in the name and honor of my God and my culture. That's what interests me. And y'all fickle fight to the top of, I don't know what that top is, because ain't none of us sugar honey iced tea. Y'all fighting for the top position of what? Because ain't none of us sugar honey iced tea in the eyes of God. And why y'all so thirsty to be the HNIC, the Hebrew in charge of what? I don't know, because we ain't nothing in God's eyes. The greatest one of us is still the least. The Mishnah says, the people of Sodom have no share in the world to come. The sages taught the people of Sodom have no share in the world to come, as it is stated. Listen to this. And the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Listen to what Rabbi Yehuda says, the man who is the author of the oral tradition. Don't bring me to commentaries with people who never even wrote in the oral tradition, who don't have a voice in the oral tradition. Bring me to the source. Bring me to the oral tradition, and I'm going to do even better than that. I'm going to give you the guy that gave it to us. I keep telling y'all, stop comparing me to these teachers and leaders, so-called. We ain't the same, not even a little bit. It says, and the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Wicked indicates in this world, and sinners indicates in the world to come. Rav Yehuda says, wicked is referring to sins that they committed with their bodies. And sinners is referring to the sins they committed with their money. So Rabbi Akwetey Amaah, you have been exposed as a liar. And allow me to be the first to tell you, the truth is not in you. Because not only doesn't the oral tradition not only say that greed, money, haughtiness, arrogance, and not feeding the poor is the cause, but the oral tradition also says that sinning in their flesh was also the cause. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys appreciate my time. I've been here with you guys 3.5 hours. You hear me? 3.5 hours to give you my precious time that I could have been sharing with family, that I could have been enjoying outside. But instead, somebody who's literally up here 6 days a week, always coming to defend our community, always, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, not the runner-up, but the first, always on the front lines, defending the culture and heritage of the Israelite community. Instead, I'm here forced to have to respond to people who some of us in our ignorance are regarding as teachers, leaders, and even rabbis. With that being said, guys, make sure you hit that like button on the way out. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And also, if you are genuinely supporting what I do and you respect what I do, no matter what it is, family, reach out and hit that donation button. Show support for what is happening here, because you know that I am dedicated to bringing it. Show that you have respect for what's being conveyed out here. With that being said, family, peace to you all. Shalom and shalom.
Starting your Locker Natural Hair journey is oh so rewarding, but can be extremely stressful when you start to consider what products to use. If that's you, then look no further. Locklicious is a Black-owned company that has created an all-natural product line for locked and loose natural crowns. The Locklicious team works hard to ensure that their products are free of parabens, phthalates, sulfates, PEG, synthetics, and other toxic chemicals you find in other products. Best of all, the products are lightweight and will not leave residue or cause buildup. Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.